So we were at the Western District Conference last month, and Serena was a speaker there. And when I was on the follow-up phone call this last month, there were people jockeying position to get her to speak at their chapter event. We had already had her scheduled, so I was not worried at all. But I was real thrilled to hear all of the positive feedback. I mean, they had over 300, I don't know, Keith, you helped plan that. What did we have, 300?
Yeah, it's just over 300 attendees.
300 attendees, and really great feedback on Serena's
I'm pretty sure they were drunk.
So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get started. Over the last
Very
20
serious.
years, she's worked closely with public and private companies, providing guidance on investor and public relations trends. As Director of Social and Evolving Media at Business Wire, she participates in and oversees the creation and implementation of mobile and social strategies designed to meet a wide range of customer goals, from brand awareness to customer appreciation and service to driving potential new fans into the marketing funnel. Serena creates relationships with core and affinity audiences to create 360-degree awareness for brands. She started her career in advertising, where she developed an understanding of branding from a large-scale perspective. However, in her 14 years in the newswire industry, that placed her squarely at the forefront of technical, sociological, and influential revolution changing the face of customer communications. In '94, she was a part of a small team who introduced the communications industry to the internet via a series of first ever conferences. That's going back a little bit, huh?
I'm old.
Her love of technology-based communications hasn't stopped since. In addition to her responsibilities at Business Wire, she serves as the membership chair of the International Social Media Club Board of Directors. So thank you so much for being here. We are delighted.
Hi, guys. I am so excited to be here. I'm a very serious person, as you can tell. No, well, and I'm really, this is actually one of my favorite topics. It does say the ROI of a press release. This is going to really round out and be more about the ROI of PR in general. But I'm hoping that by the end of this meeting, you guys will be armed with information that takes you back and allows you to both get better budgets for PR and also a raise, a promotion, a bigger staff. I personally think, and from what I've seen in the last 10 years, is that, excuse my language, but PR's really gotten the shaft. In reality, I mean, how many budgets have you seen being slashed, and yet marketing's budgets increase? Budgets are going elsewhere. Well, you want to know something? They did some surveys last year. Nielsen did a range of surveys and found that the #1 piece of content that converts somebody, this doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit, B2B, B2C, is editorial coverage. Who secures that? You guys do. That means a brand content, user reviews, editorial coverage still continues to be the most impactful in the sales and marketing funnel. And yet, once again, PR people are constantly getting their budget slashed because there's this misperception that all PR does is raise awareness. And a lot of that is basically because previously there weren't a lot of tools out there to measure that. So now what we want to do is talk about the things that PR should be taking credit for. Sorry, marketers. And again, what really is making impact, and then how do you increase ROI when you're doing out that. I'm going to also quickly just give you a quick update on Google, because Google's done something really great for companies. They've done 2 things this year that really help PR people out. One is in mobile search. You type in your company name in mobile search, what you're going to see is some information about the company. You're going to see your own website links and that. And now Google has moved editorial coverage into the mobile web search results. Why? Because 80%, up to about 80% of research is now being done online before someone picks up a phone and calls a company, before they'll talk to your salesperson. They're going to research you out, right? Everybody has a mobile tablet, and that mobile tablet, this is not really a phone, right? This is a computer. And with this computer or laptop, tablets, people are doing a lot more research on a company. They know editorial coverage is one of the conversion factors that is the most impactful, so Google has now put that into the main section of mobile search. That's designed to help people interested in your company convert into moving into your marketing funnel. The other thing that Google has done, they did it last year in September, but it really got a lot of coverage a couple of months ago, is Google has now put press releases into the news section of Google search. So if you get coverage on your company, what you're going to see alongside that coverage is the actual press release. This is because there has been such a huge issue in the media space of clickbait headlines that don't align to the actual story. They want to be more dramatic, that more and more media outlets in their coverage are linking back or referencing the press release. Now Google wants the source material, the press release you wrote, to stand next to the coverage. Why? Because consumers are becoming, even though editorial coverage is a high conversion, clickbait is leading to trust issues. So what Google wants to do is let the user decide if they want to read the coverage or the actual press release from you. So what this means is your actual press release, this one little document that everybody says is dead, Google's putting a lot of weight on it because they're recognizing that people want the source materials. You'll also, again, remember how hard it used to be that if you got a piece of coverage, trying to get the reporter to put a link to your website? Please just link, right? And you'd be like, that's a great piece in the LA Times, but no link to my website, I got nothing from it. Now they're linking to your press release. So there's some new weight happening on PR. It's really because they're trying to make sure that the customer, the end user, the person who's interested in your product, has all of this actual source research. I love it. So now, ROI. So those are a couple of things that are increasing your visibility of your press releases. And then if in your release you have links to your website, it's going to increase the inbound traffic to your website. Inbound traffic to your website is an ROI measure. We'll talk about that. Okay, so what is the formula for PR for success? And this is no surprise, right? This is kind of like saying, in the morning you wake up. It's logic. Great content plus great distribution is higher ROI. One of the things that we see is a lot of people, especially as they move into content marketing or PR, is they start saying things like, well, I don't want to pay someone to distribute my release. Or I don't want to pay, I actually had a CEO, we spent $5,000 on a white paper. And he said, we're not going to pay to promote it, but we paid to create it. The reality is there's no such thing as good content. There's only seen content. So this is why it's so important that when you create content like a press release, and I use that because that's what PR people tend to generate as the launch of their programming or press releases, but it's the same thing with marketing content. You're creating this amazing content, you combine it with distribution, and that's how you get your ROI. So what is ROI? How do you calculate it? Oops. I'll tell you in a second. I put the slide in. It's actually just as a reminder slide. By the way, you'll have a copy of this deck after, so you don't have to take notes on all this stuff. But we always want to remind people that when you're, one of the things when we're talking about news releases, when we're talking about what PR people do, you guys are the ones launching the program. The minute you hit go is the minute the entire program is started, right? So what it does is, but once it happens, you have the opportunity with your release or with your launch news to reach new people and introduce them to the company. Or you may find that that release tapped into somebody who was in the middle of researching you and it drove them to actually engage. Or you may even find that a brand fan sees your news and shares it out because they're so excited that they're already a customer and they want to tell their fans. This is the traditional marketing funnel. It used to be that PR was all about awareness, and it still is. PR is the branding of your business. But what we're going to show is how you can actually showcase and tell management the rest of what you're doing. So, well, all right, my slide, I'm missing a slide. I think it's going to come up in a second. Anyway, as we said, I just talked about that. So this is the most glorious slide I've ever created in my whole life. I am a textual person. I'm not very visual, if you can't tell, hence all the writing. So I gave this to our design team, and I said, make this pretty. They were like, we can't. We can't make this pretty. This is what you guys do. This is your job, right? So you write a release, you've got your program, you're launching your program, and firstly, if you give it to a wire service, this is the part that the wire service does, right? Or this is the part your paid amplification does. But you're also internally, when you do news and when you're trying to create ROI, what you have to think about is what else you can do internally with your press release or your PR document to get impact. So what most people do is, again, most people give it to a wire service, they do their own PR outreach, and then they put it on their website. Well, those are great things, but if you want to increase the visibility, you also, again, when you do your outreach, instead of just outreaching to media, You might want to find influencers, bloggers, other people that do that. The more you do that, the more third-party coverage that you're getting. Then from here, you can get into the funnel. You also want to make sure that you're sharing it on your social channels, and then you also want to make sure that you're outreaching to partners, your company partners, saying, hey, we've got this news today, would you share it out? Give them pre-written messaging. Remember how I told you editorial coverage is the most impactful thing you can get? There is one more thing more impactful than editorial coverage. 67% of consumers trust editorial coverage. When that's shared by a third party, social media, word of mouth, it jumps to 84%. So the more you can get partners and third parties and employees, by the way, put it on your intranet, the more you can get them to share your coverage out, the higher your impact will be. In fact, LinkedIn has a very interesting program that you can do within your companies to help increase visibility of your information. If 10 employees within your company are connected to each other, so if Leah, myself, and 8 other Business Wire people are connected together on LinkedIn, we're all first connections, we issue a press release or get a blog posted that day, what I will do is I'll put on our intranet. I'll say, hey guys, we have this blog out, can you please go share it? Here are some social media messages, or create your own. You always want to, whenever you ask someone to share for you, you always want to write the messages yourself, because people are lazy, right? I will tweet it. By the way, I will tweet anything you want me to do. Seriously, Serena's my Twitter handle. I will tweet for you. But you have to give me the tweet. I'm not going to write it, right? If you give me a pre-written tweet, I'm tweeting all day. So what happens is with LinkedIn, it's very interesting, is that LinkedIn has a very interesting algorithm that if 10 people who are connected to each other as first connections share the same piece of content around the same time, LinkedIn will, the algorithm kicks in and says, this must be a highly valuable piece of content, and they show it to all your third-party connections. So Leah and I are first-party connections. Beth is connected to me. Leah and I share a piece of content out. When Beth logs into LinkedIn, it's going to say your network is talking about, and it's going to be my piece of content. So when you're thinking about activation and creating ROI, don't forget that every single social network has come out and said the number one thing that travels on our network is news, is facts and stats. News is the number one thing every network is people, even Pinterest. So the more you can create news, whether it's your press release, an op-ed, a thought leadership piece, or coverage, the more you create it, and then the more you give it to people to share through shared, the higher your ROI will be. And then if it's really big news, don't forget to put it on your website, your blog, also email lists, but also email signatures. Have your employees swap up their signature and put that in there. We even see some people putting it on printed receipts. I don't know how they're getting inbound traffic from printed receipts, but we're starting to see that. The more you can share out and promote your news, the more result you're going to get. But then again, as we talk about, you also want to make sure you're using amplification services like newswires. Because again, all these other parties that you're paying to distribute your news will also have impact that will then put people into your funnel. This is the slide I was looking for, defining ROI. So how do you actually define the ROI of what you're doing? Well, basically, it's the overall result, which we'll talk about, minus your creation costs. So the other thing I have up here is multimedia. As you know in social, right? Everybody's heard this. Add a photo to your social and your social update and you'll get more action. It's exactly the same with your news. Text-only news releases will not work anymore. AP, we did a webinar with AP. AP has a subsequent 4,800 media outlets that subscribe to AP's news. AP did an analysis of what type of news their subscribers look at. They do not ever open news that doesn't have images. So if your news is going out as text only, you've automatically got 4,800 media outlets that are not going to look at it. That's what's happening. You know why? This phone has created all of this drama for you because this phone has made every one of us a selfie genius. I wasn't taking a selfie, by the way, when I got pulled over. Nor did I periscope the scenario. But what's happened is this reliance on these phones has turned all of us into content creators. One of the reasons why Snapchat is so big is that it's not me texting Beth that I'm bored. It's me showing my sad little face. I'm bored. That's the difference, right? The difference between a textual I'm bored and a visual I'm bored is very, very, very big. So what you have to start thinking, and I'm telling you within probably the next 5 years, press releases are going to be almost completely image-oriented. 63% of the world are visual learners. I'm not, as you can tell. I love words. Words and I go way back. But 63% of the world are visual. So if you're writing PR content and you're still thinking text only, you're not actually activating people. So the more you can think in assets, one of my favorite examples is the how to boil water. Google search how to boil water. It's my favorite thing because you'll get text, someone wrote out, you'll get photos, an actual photo series of what it looks like to boil water, and a video. And when you're creating news, if you want to increase your ROI, think like that. Create the same piece of news in 3 formats, and you'll hit your entire audience. The textual version, I will read and love. The video version, I don't watch videos. But my sister will read and love. She loves videos. And then the photo version. So if you're looking to, when you're talking about your costs, you want to think about all the costs that are associated with it. And then don't forget, and by the way, this also, here, don't forget your team member costs. Take your salary, figure out what your hourly rate is, and how long did it take you to create the content, and put that in there. And then obviously your distribution content. Whether you're using a wire service, whether you're paying influencers, or you're promoting it on Outbrain or deliver it after it crosses the wire. And then here your ROI is. Now, one thing we're going to talk about is that most of the monitoring tools in this do not include offline conversations. So when we talk about monitoring for PR, that's a little different than marketing, especially with online, is that what you want to say is you always want to say that this is a snapshot. That we did a lot more than this, but this is what we can calculate. So where do you start when you're establishing ROI? First, you figure out your goals. So again, PR people. Previously, it was all about awareness. We're letting people know that our company exists. We're making sure that our target audience knows we have new products so that when the salespeople call them, they're aware. So it was really very heavily at the top of the funnel with awareness. But marketers, smartly so, have always aligned their metrics with business goals. PR people should do that too. What is the business goal of the company? Almost every single company out there, the goal is sales, right? I mean, or it's an idea, the selling of a product or the selling of a thought. So once you know your goal, you establish, work along with the KPIs of your business. Okay, so the goal is sales. But we don't necessarily drive, for example, I'll use Business Wire. You can't buy our product from our website. So I can't necessarily say our sale is goals because I can't necessarily tie it all the way there. So I can say sales is the ultimate goal, but our goal will be inbound traffic, shares, the amount of times somebody retweets something else, and by the way, I'll talk about all that next. Then you want to get your content and your news approved. Then you want to think about where you're going to distribute this. And this goes back to the other slide I showed you. You want to think about your owned properties, your intranet, your website, your social channels, shared properties. Do you have any company partners that are aligned with this type of news that it would be helpful for them to share it out? Let's make sure you do that. Earned, this is obviously PR's effort. Your release has gone out. This is when you start pitching and you start contacting influencers. And then paid. Again, newswire distributions falls into that. So do things like Outbrain or Deliver It. Are you guys familiar with Outbrain or Deliver It? It's kind of a cool service. It's a pay-as-you-go service that allows you to take a link to coverage. We use this internally when somebody writes about us, where you go in and probably for $3 or $5, $10 per story. You know when you go to Huffington Post or any website and you're reading the article and at the bottom it says, you might be interested in? That's Outbrain. That's Deliver It. What those services will do is take your news and put them in the appropriate blocks, ad blocks. Now the trick to making those work is that they really like catchy headlines. So I have found in the B2B space, the impact is a little less than when I did it in the B2C space. In the B2C space, if you put Ryan Seacrest in your headline, you'll get 1 million clicks. In the B2B space, when I put Business Wire in the headline, I get about 1,000 clicks. But you pay as you go, so it's not that expensive. It's called Outbrain is one, and then Deliver It, and that's DLVR.IT. And actually with Business Wire, you get Deliver It for free with your press releases, that's part of it. But this isn't meant to actually be a sales pitch. This is just so you guys know what falls under paid. Then once you've distributed your news, you want to monitor, measure, and adjust. The monitoring and measurement is actually really important. When you look at your monitoring reports, and again, I'll talk about this, what you want to think is, what from this report can I pass on internally to the sales team so they can make sales? And I'll show you how to do that. And then you just start all over again. So again, setting goals. When you're going back to trying to determine, you're aligning it to the company KPIs. What's the goal? Who's your audience? What are the reactions of the audience, and how will that impact the goal? What content do you need to create this reaction? If this is a piece of news that you don't care anything about, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have press releases where you're like, I gotta send this out, but it's really not impacting us. Then you may not need any content but the press release. But if you're launching something that's gonna change your business forever, this is where you start thinking about what the other content is. This is where you work with marketing departments to see what they've created, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. You want to know what, again, Deliver It, Outbrain, what tools you're using, what assets to include that increases your ROI. It's kind of like content. This is hyperlinked, so when you get this, it'll go to an article that tells you about that. And then what sharing options increase impact. There is a free service that I love so much, I can't even stand it. Honestly, it's called Click to Tweet. And unlike any other tech company out there, it keeps all its vowels. It's Click to Tweet. It's totally free. You go to click, in fact, I may have a slide on it, but I'm too excited to wait. You go to clicktotweet.com, and you log in with your Twitter handle, and it pulls up a box. It pulls up a Twitter box. And so you can pre-write a tweet, save the link, and then in your press releases, for example, you can say followers. And when somebody opens your release and they see a prompt to tweet, they almost always tweet it out, right? Because they wouldn't have opened your release if they didn't care. Then when they click that link, you've already pre-written the tweet. Not only have you pre-written the tweet, but you could put hashtags in there that are relevant to promoting your tweet further. You could tag people that might be useful in helping to retweet promote. But even better, you can include a link that goes back to your website. When you tweet out press releases, and it's from the wire service version, the traffic goes back to the wire service. With Click to Tweet, when they tweet it out, they'll be tweeting out a link to your website. And you can put a URL builder, which I'll also talk about, that will track that traffic. So there's a lot of ways that you can create and jumpstart promotion because of with the little tools like this. And I'm pretty sure I have slides on it, but again, I get super excited. All right, here we go. How to amplify content. So the first thing you want to do, and I've talked about a lot of this, so I'm not going to keep reiterating, but you'll already have this in writing for you. Again, as we said, successful campaigns are all about content creation, figuring out their distribution, tapping influencers. That can be media outlets or bloggers in this day and age. It can also just be active tweeters. There are people out there who don't blog at all, but will tweet on your behalf. You can identify those through your monitoring reports. Reach out to them, and instead of saying, will you cover my story, say, I know that you've shared our news before. Would you be willing to tweet this out? And just give them a tweet that they can tweet out for you. So you can do this type of influencer action. Why do you want that? Because you want to take that trust level to 84%. You want a third party to be standing there stamping their approval on your news. Again, utilizing advertising and partnerships, and then these amplification services. Writing press releases, it's been very interesting, and I know we've talked about some of these things. I wanted to show you a few things to know about. One of the things we're seeing is that people used to write press releases that were very generic. And the concept would be, we would hear this all the time, well, if USA Today wants to write about it, we want to make sure that this is dumbed down enough for them. We don't want to be too targeted. The reality is that USA Today will not write about a story that they're not really interested in. So you don't have to dumb down your news. If you're a highly technical company and your audience, your purchaser is a highly technical person, write for that person. So what you want to do is instead of writing these huge, broad press releases that don't activate anybody, how many of you guys have ever worked with a client where you said, what's the audience? And they said, everyone, right? Everyone doesn't activate anything. What is a smart PR program? We all do this. It's activating small audiences, let them take the news out for you. So press releases are the same. You don't have to write these generic releases anymore. Be as technical as you want. Write for your target audience. Then you also want to make sure that you're adding, as we talked about a lot, multimedia. You want to make sure that you're using bullets. Bullets make things really easy and readable. In press releases, if you're sharing statistics of any kind, stats of any kind, 68% of a person does this, use that click-to-tweet I was telling you about at the end of each stat. Put a little thing that says tweet this, a hyperlink that says tweet this with a click-to-tweet. Because Twitter people love to share stats. They love it. Social networks are aspirational networks. If you look at my Twitter account, I'm much smarter on paper than I am in real life. Actually, the other day, this actually truly happened. About a year ago, somebody said to me, I didn't know you were funny on Twitter because I'm so mean on Twitter. I'm so serious and like, this is how it is. And they didn't even know, I'm really funny. I couldn't even believe it. But what happens in the morning, when people wake up in the morning, especially, is they look at their phone and they want to get as much data as possible. And they want to establish their smart reputation as possible. So when you put in the ability for somebody to share out a statistic, oh, they love that. People love it. And stats retweet very, very well on Twitter. So when you're trying to increase ROI of a press release, that's where click-to-tweet can really come in and be your friend. Put in an awesome sentence. And then right after that, tweet this with a pre-written link that it has that awesome sentence in it, and people will tweet it out for you. Click-to-tweets, by the way, work for blogs, op-eds, third-party cover, anything. It's not just press releases. We did a blog, and I put 5 click-to-tweets in one blog, and I was like, nobody's going to tweet this stuff out. There's 5 of them. People clicked all 5 every single time. I had more Twitter activity on one blog post. Each of the 5 was a stat, so it seemed really interesting. But if you want to increase adoption, use bullets and then put in that click-to-tweet. The other thing you want to do is, add in click-to-tweet. And then how many of you guys are using URL builders or even know what a URL builder is? Okay, this is the coolest thing. I've got one person. It's the coolest thing in the entire world. I don't even do this at Business Wire. And then I realized, like, I could get a lot more credit for my work if I do this. So if you have Google Analytics, now any analytics package that your company has for the website has this opportunity. But a lot of people have Google Analytics. It's called Google's URL Builder. And you can just Google it. It'll come right up. What it does is it allows you to put in you can say, okay, this is my press release. So you put in it's a campaign name, press release. Then you put in okay, and it will give you this extender, a bunch of characters, question mark, UTM, and email, blah, 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 this long extension. So I'll take businesswire.com, I'll add on that long extension, and I'll put it as a hyperlink to every time I reference Business Wire in my press release. What happens then is that any time someone clicks on businesswire.com and goes back to our site, because I put that URL extender on the end, it tracks everything they do on the site. Talk about ROI. Think about it. In ads, if you're doing online advertising, these extenders are in there. Your ad team is already using them. And what they're doing is they're tracking the massive amount of probably unqualified traffic coming to your site. In press releases, when you put that in there, it's a smaller number that you're driving in, but it's literally the most qualified traffic anyone can drive to your site. Why? Because nobody would open a press release and they sure as hell wouldn't click on the link if they didn't want to go back to your site. Once they go back to your site, you're now really getting into real analytics. Because what you're going to be able to do is go into Google Analytics or have your web team go in, put in that extender, and then just pull up all the traffic that came in through your extender, through that URL that you created. And it's going to tell you what they did. And now it aligns back to that marketing funnel. Was it the first time that they've ever been to your site? If so, congratulations, you got new people interested in your site. Was it the third time they've been to your site? Congratulations, people who are already researching your company have seen your news. Or did they purchase? But now, thanks to this URL extender, you can now tell all the traffic that your press releases, or you can use these extenders for social updates, you can use these extenders for anything. But it's how marketing teams track the traffic that they're driving in, but their traffic is unqualified. Your traffic is highly, highly qualified. So you want to make sure that you present this as a snapshot, because not everybody will click that link. They might go to the top and type in your URL. But what it does is it actually, for the first time, allows you to qualify the traffic that you're bringing into the site. Now, here are the things that marketing you can take away and give to other departments to handle, unless you're in charge of this yourself, and then more work for you. Sorry about that. Is let's say you drive somebody into the site and you put them on a really specific landing page. You're talking about cat toys. And so you drove them to your cat toy landing page. And you get all these people to your cat toy landing page, and they bounce off the page instantly, which is, by the way, what this thing will tell you. Well, what you can do then is go in and say, listen, we're driving real traffic to the site. There's something wrong with this landing page that it's not converting those people into sales. Not PR's job. PR drove the people in. But it doesn't mean that there isn't work to be done. Now it's marketing's job, or again, if you're in charge of both, you have to update that landing page, or maybe send them to a different landing page. But what we'll do, let's pretend you're Business Wire, and I've been sending all the traffic of every press release for the last 40 years to businesswire.com. What if I add in these URL extenders and suddenly realize that nobody stays? That means for 40 years I've been driving people to the wrong site, the wrong page. Maybe there's a better page to send them to. And when I swap that out, they stay in our site longer, or they go places, and have increased ROI. So when we say measure and adjust, this is one of those measurement points. Hopefully that makes sense. Come on, tell me, is that me? I saw that and I was like, my people have arrived. I'm not going to go into this too much. A couple of other things just to note, we always do talk about assets. There are some things coming down the pike in relation to multimedia that I want to let you know about. One, we're seeing more surveys and more reporters coming back saying that it's taking them a half hour or an hour to find assets to go with a press release. Can you imagine how excited reporters must be to get to actually get assets? So when you do have assets, make sure you make that very well known. What we find that reporters are doing is they're getting the pitch, or they might be interested in the story, and rather than reach out to you, they're going to the website. And they're going to the company newsroom, and they're hoping to find those assets there. So if you don't have usable multimedia in your company newsroom, and you're doing a large PR program, you want to add those in, because you'll start to notice usability of those assets. We are starting to see some media outlets use competitive assets when they can't find assets. So that's the other thing. If you happen to have a ton of photographs related to your industry that are a little bit more generic, let the reporter know that. If you ever need assets related to this, we have a ton here. Just feel free to use them at any time. And you'll start to see your assets in with competitor stories. The other thing we're starting to see is this. There's a huge movement towards interactive assets. So an interactive asset would be a photo like this, that when I put my mouse on it, little buttons appear. And when I click on those little buttons, additional supporting marketing content appears. White papers, photos, videos, and all of that. That's an interactive asset. What it does to the human reader is it gamifies the program. It creates, I'm so tired of this word, but I'm sure you've heard about it in social. If you want people to be into your program, make it delightful, right? I hate that word. I used to love that word, and now I can't stand it. But what happens with these interactive assets is people are getting delighted. It's feeding a curiosity that they didn't have before. This is what's coming down the pike. So we're already moving past photos and video into these other asset types. So just be prepared. You're going to see a lot more about that. The reason that that's becoming more successful is this right here. Standard traditional assets are very quickly viewed, and then people walk away. I can read a press release in 30 seconds. I can watch a video in 30 seconds, and then I'm off that. I'm done. Here you have assets that are now 4 to 10 minutes, average of 6 minutes and 12 seconds is the average point for these interactive assets for engagements. So you're starting to see people get much deeper into the brand by utilizing that. So be prepared when you start seeing or hearing about interactivity, just be like, I got that. Delightful, surprising, gamified, I got it. This is actually an example of a hyper-spotted or interactive one. What it does is it looks like a single asset, right? But this is the asset that they put into a press release to go with that press release. So when they pitched the Wall Street Journal or a publication, this has like an embed link, like a YouTube link, and this becomes the asset that goes along with the story. But what it is actually a microsite. But again, see how people can click and watch videos, they can do around, and this idea of being able to play and see what's on here is really driving people to do. By the way, this is like my worst nightmare. I'm textual, right? That freaks me out. I'm a minority. If this freaks you out, trust me when I say you're a minority in this. It's amazing how many people have become incredibly curious about multimedia. Meanwhile, I'm like, just give me the written text. You're going to cut that part out, right? In case my boss hears this. Leah, if you tell anybody. Okay, so I know I said some of these stats earlier, but I really want to remind you. So here's the thing. Again, no coverage, nobody's content. Your press release will never get the visibility without your earned outreach, right? That is kind of the heart of PR, is not only creating the news that's defining your company, but also creating the relationships that help define it. So what can you actually do with, to increase that? And again, I know I keep going back over this, but again, it's news coverage, influencer coverage, the distribution of that content, the SEO that you get from the content you create, including your press release, and then word of mouth. Those are the things that really are increasing and getting you to this earned media ROI. So we talked about this. I know I'm gonna, again, you'll get a copy of this. But what you wanna do is you also wanna make sure you're using your owned channels. These are just some areas that you can share your news and your content to get higher ROI. You wanna make sure that you're using click-to-tweets and encouraging retweets. So when your release goes out, one of the things that your wire service will give you is a list of all the people who tweeted it or retweeted it. And what happens with a brand, by the way, how often, if you get a piece of coverage, how many of you are tweeting that coverage out? Someone wrote a story about you, you're gonna tweet it out. I'm gonna tell you a trick. You should be tweeting that coverage out a minimum of 15 times per piece of coverage. Now, I already saw a face that has the face that I see every single time I bring it up. What? Are you kidding? Nobody would, that would kill. Right, it is time. And what I use personally is I use Hootsuite. I will write out, I'll take the coverage, I'll pull it up, and I'll pull 15 interesting sentences out of that piece of coverage. By the way, I'll do it for op-eds, I'll do it for anything that's played. Press releases, the same thing. And then you tweet it out. Again, the reason for this, especially with coverage, that you want to share the coverage. So there's a new relationship with media happening. Media outlets are judged, a reporter is judged on the number of views his or her story received. So if he's writing about your company and the views to that story are very low, he's not going to write about you again. He cannot write about you again because you didn't bring story views. When a media outlet's story doesn't get views, what's the perception? No one cared. Our audience didn't care. So when you get a piece of coverage, the number one thing you have to do is drive traffic to that coverage. Because at the end of the month, when he sits down, if your story is one of the ones with the most views, that means to the reporter, this is the most relevant story to our readers, we want to write about that again. It is the difference between secondary coverage and no secondary coverage. And companies are completely in control of this. The media outlet's going to share it out, the reporter's going to share it out, his readers will share it out. But you should be tweeting it out a minimum of 15 times, post it on your social channels, consider putting it into Reddit. If you're not familiar with that, don't play around. Ask your PRSA people how to use Reddit. And you want to encourage retweets. So this is why when you get your monitoring reports back from your press releases and you look at who tweeted your news out, you should thank them. you should just say thanks. Hey, thanks for the tweet. Or do a follow Friday and encourage people to follow them. The other thing you can do that's really smart is take all the, well, it's time consuming, take all the people that tweeted your news out, and you don't have to follow them, but you can add them to a list called Twitter pals or top influencers. Whatever you call that list, by the way, they'll see it, so call it something not rude. I learned this the hard way. I have a Twitter list of tall people. So what you want to do, that way you can go in and retweet things that they tweet out and start building that relationship with those people. But the reason we want to thank those tweeters for tweeting it out is because they're helping you hit this metric. And also, who doesn't freak out, honestly, when a company retweets them or says thank you, right? I still freak out. Like, oh my God, Tweet Reach said hello, you know? And that's what they'll have that feeling from you when you thank them. But one of the reasons why you want to build all that and why you want to share your coverage is that media need. And you can ask any reporter. In fact, I guarantee, start pitching your story out, and you're going to start getting reporters saying, I'll post it, and then I need you to share it out. I just got a piece of coverage for the Huffington Post, and the woman wrote me back and said, when it's posted, she said, actually, please go like my Facebook page. I'm a freelancer, so go like my Facebook page. Can you share this out? And then da-da-da. So she actually gave me instructions before she would write the coverage on all about sharing. Okay, so now finally how to measure the impact. So there are a lot of different ways to measure impact of a press release. This is just an example of a monitoring report that we offer. So obviously coverage is the first and oldest metric. When you look at coverage, you want to look at the publication. And now you want to look at the reach of that publication. So there's a free service called Tweet Reach that every time you get coverage or an article placed, take that URL, put it into Tweet Reach, and it will tell you how far that coverage traveled on Twitter. It will give you the people who tweeted it out. It will give you impression numbers if you still use impressions. But it's a really great service. The reason I say that is because your company might have a target publication like the Wall Street Journal. I gotta get in the Wall Street Journal. It's gotta be in the Wall Street Journal. And you get a piece of coverage in the Wall Street Journal, and you get a piece of coverage in the Aviation Today, and you may go into Tweet Reach and find out nobody shared the Wall Street Journal piece. Everybody shared the Aviation Today piece. And the people that shared this piece came into our site and did a lot more than the people who shared this piece. So this might become your new publication target. You may have never considered Aviation Today as the hipster publication for your industry, and suddenly you proved it. So you want to look at your pickup and coverage, who wrote about you, and how viral that piece went. The length of the article, which assets of yours that they used. If it's in print, obviously you want to look at where on the page it was covered, and then message adoption. One of the nice things that you can measure today is key phrases within your publication. Because so many reporters copy and paste from press releases, you should take credit for that. Because what you're seeing there is message adoption. The more a publication copies and uses your words, that's adoption. That's your messaging being furthered. So that's something you definitely, people don't take credit for that, but you should definitely be looking and taking credit. You also want to set your baselines. So the other thing PR people don't take credit for is inbound traffic the day the press release goes out. So how do you do that? You need to set a baseline. You can go in and say, every single day, we get an average of 1,000 people to our website. The day we issued a press release, we got 1,200. So we're responsible for that 20% increase. That's, how many PR people take credit for that? But that is what you did. Your news, you launched the program. Even if it's a joint program with marketing, you launched that program, this is what you get credit for. Again, the influencer discussions, you can set your baseline. You can say we get an average of 50 discussions about our product on Twitter a day, but the day of the press release went out, we got 600 discussions. Take credit for that increase. Article count, the number of shares that your articles get, followers, your inbound traffic, and your actions. So followers, you may have 1,000 people following you on Twitter with an average growth of 5 a day, and the day you issue your press release, you get 20 new followers. You take credit for that. So all the social platforms, by the way, sorry to jump back into this, a great tip is if you have a marketing channel internally that really converts well for you, like a newsletter, Twitter account here, follow us here. Make that a standalone call out in your press releases, and you'll see more inbound traffic and more subscribers to that through that link. And what you're doing is you're not sharing all your social channels, just the ones that you know have the highest conversion rate. And then again, you're moving them out of the PR awareness into that marketing funnel. Visibility, again, you want to know who shared it, where it was shared, and then you want to know which content worked best. Was it that you did a press release, or was it the photo that your press release? Is it your squirrel picture, or is it a statement that you said? Which one is working the best? And then which audience were activated? Most of us do PR, for example, for Business Wire. We have a variety of audiences because we have seasoned PR professionals and we have new PR professionals. So which of these audiences that I've acknowledged was activated the highest? Don't forget to discuss geo impact. This is something that's very new for PR, but really important. Your monitoring and measuring reports that you get from your newswire company, or if you have a subscription to a database, should tell you, I know ours do, what part of the country was activated the highest during your news. So let's say, we'll go with Texas. So you do a press release, you come back and you're like, holy smokes, everybody on Twitter, Facebook, the social channels in Texas are all talking about our product. Here's two things you can do with that. One, call your sales team and say, it takes 20 touches to make a sale, and these touches are happening in Texas. Let's go and make sure everybody's making sales calls into Texas. Now is the time. Two, you can say, we already know we have a lot of conversation happening in Texas. Let's do some paid social advertising in Texas. Let's do some LinkedIn advertising just for Texas, Facebook just for Texas. Let's get into this discussion cycle and use it to our benefit. The third thing you can do is call morning radio and morning TV and say, hey, we would like to come in and talk about whatever our news is, because we already know that people in your market are talking about it. All they have to do is go online. They're going to see the chatter is there, and that might help you get better coverage. So utilizing geo impact is going to be something that you can now take back. What did you do? You took something to your sales team, you took something to your marketing and advertising team, and you created a new project for yourself, all by just knowing where people were talking about you. And then, as I said earlier, this is what the URL builder page looks like. You want to make sure you're using this. Use this for press releases, use this for the version of your press release that's on your website, use this for what you're giving reporters, use this for, and you can create different links for anything. The links are free. This is totally free to do. But what it's going to do is it's going to help you understand where your traffic is coming in, what's happening, and then whether your landing pages are working or not. And I'm almost done, I promise. And then increase your own marketing pipelines. I did talk a little bit about this. In your blog post, in your coverage, in your, as many things as you can control, identify the top marketing channel and drive people to that channel. Don't worry about driving them to every single social channel that you have. People will find you. I don't need to know a press release to know that you're on Facebook. I'll go to Facebook and search for you. But if you have Analog Devices in Boston has 5 calls to action in every press release to join marketing channels. 5. And because what they want to do is they use the press release to generate that activity, because they know once somebody's in that channel, they'll convert really fast. And then again, your social shares. The other thing I want to remind you is consider using a hashtag. For Business Wire, we use BW Chat for everything. That way you can track it. And then the other thing you want to do when you're looking at social is monitor your message adoption in social. If people are changing your message as it goes in social, it may be that your message doesn't resonate. You might be using too many technical terms. It might not be the wording your audience uses, and you can adjust from there. And that's it. I'm almost out of time. You're welcome. You're welcome. I love stuff like this. Yeah, and you guys will send a copy of this. You know, you definitely have it. And the last thing I'll say is, remember I was telling you about sharing editorial coverage, tweeting out your coverage? I'm going to tell you a quick story. No one writes about Business Wire. You guys surprised? No matter how we pitch, because we're a pipe. So last year I did 75 op-eds for Business Wire, and we placed them. And what I did is every time we placed an op-ed, a thought leadership op-ed, we would take control of the share, of making sure it was shared out. So there's a publication in our industry called Compro Biz. We did this with Compro Biz. And what happened is at the end of the week, our op-eds would be included in their either Friday trending stories for the week, our op-ed would be there. So we got included in the newsletter. At the end of the month, when they talked about top stories of the month, we would be included in that. And in the end of year wrap-up, they did the top 10 stories, 3 were Business Wire stories. And we owned that entire channel. All we did was write good content, and really it's take control of sharing it out. So if you want to own a publication and own that, consider op-eds and then sharing it out. Okay, now I'm done. I'm really done.